Hello, I'm Dr. Cheryl, and welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl, Wealth Transformation. Our show is raising the awareness and consciousness in the relationship with wealth and unconditional love. Always remember that your present situation is not your final destination. The best is yet to come, by Zig Ziglar. I hope and encourage you to pay attention to the political movement that is happening in our country right now. With the absurdities and truth that are being spoken, please, we all need to vote. You do make a difference. We need a major shift in our government to save our honor, integrity, and ethics as Americans and as a nation. Please don't turn a blind eye. This election is pivotal. Our show this evening is about the wealth of communication with our special guest, Peter James Meyers. Peter James Meyers, founder and president of Stand and Deliver, is a communication consultant who has worked with leaders in politics, business, sports, and performing arts to achieve greater influence through the spoken word. A graduate of the University of Southern California, Peter lived and studied in the Zen Yoga Arts Institute in New York and trained as a performer with the late Stella Adler and Sanford Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse. He is the former artistic director of the award-winning Vector Theater Company in San Francisco. In founding Stand and Deliver, Peter synthesized his experience in sports as a tennis and ski instructor, in theater as an actor and director, and a high-performance psychology as a teacher at the Esalen Institute, connecting the three disciplines to develop Stand and Deliver's high-performance communication curriculum. He has taught performance and leadership skills at the Esalen Institute, American Conservatory Theater, Stanford University, Dominican University, and the International Institute of Management Development in Switzerland. He is the author of As We Speak, published by Simon & Schuster in 2011. Welcome, Peter. It's been a while since I saw you in the car. You know, the thing that impressed me the most is I know that you listen articulately to someone speaking, because you picked up that you asked me, you said, "Are you from the North?" And I thought, wait a minute, I'm Californian, fourth generation, but I wasn't educated down here. My primary and secondary was up in Washington, and you picked it up.
Oh, I remember that now. I said, right. That was my very first Uber ride, you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was my very first.
You were a virgin.
Yeah. And it was pouring rain.
Yes, it was.
It was completely flooding.
It was, all the way to Cesar Chavez.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, you definitely made an impression on me because and then I asked you, how do you know that? How did you know that and you said, you had to think about it, but you said, you're ours.
Right.
And anyway, right. I was impressed. So welcome. I thought with your background with communication, I thought you'd be a wonderful guest. And thank you for coming here.
You're very welcome.
And so tell us about where you're from and how you got to where you are I know you're an actor. And we've already done an intro, so the viewers see your background already. But give us some background of where you're from.
Well, I'm from New York. I grew up in Queens, and then we moved out to Northport. And I was a kid that I was the quiet, weird kid who sat in the back of the room, and I pretty much just rode motorcycles. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be a motorcycle mechanic because I liked motorcycles, and I thought, you don't have to talk to anybody. You just work on the motorcycle. And I was headed.
You wanted to hide.
I did. I was so incredibly shy.
Yeah.
And awkward. I couldn't find my voice. I sat in the back of the room. I had a leather jacket. I had hair back then. I had long hair, and I wore a bandana. So it's kind of like a rebellious teenager. And my senior year of high school, I transferred to go live with my dad. And my parents were concerned that I wasn't really getting started.
Yeah.
I went to go to another school, and for the first time, I fell in love. I fell in love with Amy. Amy was at Cliffside Park High School, and here I was this guy in the back with the long hair and the bandana, quiet, but I was the new kid, and Amy was the drama queen, in the sense that she did all the plays. She did all the musicals, got all the leads. She was very popular, got straight A's. What she saw in me, I don't know, but I was the new rebellious guy, so of course.
Well, what she saw in you came out later, right?
Exactly. So spring came, March, and I remember her saying to me, here at Cliffside Park High School, all the seniors do drama night. I said, good, I'll come and watch you. She said, no, everybody has to do something.
Participation.
Yeah, I said, well, I don't do drama, but I'll come and watch. She said, no, you have to. I said, Amy, I don't have to. She said, if you love me, you'll do it.
Ooh, wow.
That's what I said. Wow, geez. I said, well, what do I have to do? She said, you just do a monologue. I said, what is a monologue? What is that? She said, it's like a speech. You do a monologue. Where do you get these monologues? She said, library, third floor. So I went to the library and I tried to find a monologue, and I couldn't find anything. All I had were these old dusty plays from the 30s. So I went home and I called Amy, and Amy went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. She was a serious drama student. I said, I couldn't find anything, but do you think I could write something? She said, you're going to write a play? I said, well, I'll write something. And I stayed up all night long and I wrote a play. I wrote a play for Amy and me.
Aw, sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It was called Blind Dates That See. It was about this guy who was this blind date with this girl, and I said, would you call her in the morning? I said, would you do it with me? And she said, absolutely. So we rehearsed this play, and we rehearsed it, and it was part of a long series of acts that would take place on drama night. And the dress rehearsal came, and Mr. Matarazzo, the advisor to the students, stood there in the middle of the auditorium. He never liked me, and he especially didn't like that I was dating Amy. And I still remember him standing there.
His star student.
Yeah. And he said, all right, Meyers, you're up first. This was New Jersey. Meyers, you're up first. Let's see your play. And they pulled the curtain, and I walked to the edge of the stage. I just got stuck.
You froze.
I totally froze. All the seniors in the wings looking at me and snickering.
Oh.
I could see Amy putting her head down.
Oh.
And I just stood there. And I'm sure it was only 20 seconds, but it felt like 20 minutes.
Yeah, right.
And I could see the edges of my vision starting to blur. And I just put my head down. And Matarazzo said, Meyers, I suggest you learn your lines because tomorrow night we open.
Ooh.
And I went out the back door and I walked home. And I just tried to think of some way that I could maybe get hit by a car a little bit. And maybe break a tibia or something in some way that I wouldn't have to. Because I thought if I froze in front of Matarazzo, I'd surely freeze when my father and my mother and my family were there and another 300 people. And Amy called me up at 10 o'clock at night because she was in several of the rehearsals. She said, what happened? I said, I told you I can't do this. I told you I can't do it. Now what am I going to do? She said, stop whining. She said, you just dried up. I said, dried up? What's dried up? She said, it's when you forget your lines. You dried up. Yeah. And there's 3 things you can do. I said, now you tell me there's 3 things you can do when you dry up. She said, I'll be right over. So we stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning rehearsing, and she taught me, here's what you do if you... And she really helped me through this dark night of the soul.
You know, this is a wonderful story because it comes back to love.
Yeah.
It's love that spurred you on. That's
Exactly.
wonderful.
She was like a secure base to me.
Great example.
And she said, you can do it. So that we showed up the next night. The auditorium was full. And Matarazzo came back. He said, I hope you know your lines. And she said, you're going to be fine. And they pulled the curtain. I walked to the edge of the stage, and I opened my mouth, and out
It
came
just
my voice.
flowed.
And it flowed.
Wow.
It flowed, and I did it, and it was funny, and it worked, and we did the thing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, I won the Drama Award for
my
Best Original
God.
Play. And
Wow.
6 months later, I was at university, and I looked back, and I thought, I crossed a bridge. And,
Huge.
And I found my voice.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I looked back and I said, I'm going to keep going with this. But if I could go back over and I could help other people over that bridge, that's my calling. And at that moment, the teacher in me was born.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amy and I are still good friends.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, what a wonderful story. I love it because it all comes back to love.
Yeah.
So, wow. What a wonderful story. So where did you go from there?
I spent a year at the University of Hartford, and I had never taken an acting class or anything, but I was doing the plays, and I was doing well. And I was
natural, innate.
Yeah, well, I guess I didn't worry about it. I just did it, and I did well. And then I transferred to USC, and John Hausman was running the department then. And I was an English major, but I took all the theater classes with the acting students.
Yeah.
There's a little story there too. I did Equus when I got there. I saw the poster, audition for Equus. I auditioned, I got the lead role. I didn't know there was a BFA. There was a conservatory department within the university, and it was a conservatory program. It wasn't really open for other students, but I didn't read the fine print. I went and I auditioned, I got the part. And I did the play. And George Firth, who was very famous playwright, who's worked with Stephen Sondheim and had been in many movies, he came to see it. And he said, how come you're not in my acting class? I said, when's your acting class? He says, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, be there. So I went. And when we were done with the acting class, they said, are you coming? I said, where? They said, now we go to dance. I said, okay, we'll go to dance. And now where? And they said, now we go to voice. And so for 3 years, I followed around the BFA department, but I was an English major. And I was taking all these classes, not getting credit, but I wasn't paying for them either. I was just doing it. And in my senior year, John Hausman, who was shooting Paper Chase on campus at the time with his bow tie and his distinguished thing, I got a little note from my drama teacher that said, Mr. Hausman wants to see you. And I was just shaking. He was pretty scary. And I realized I was taking these classes without paying. And I knocked on his big oak door. He opened it up, swung around in his leather chair and his bow tie. He said, come in, my boy. He said, I understand you're a guerrilla drama student. And I started crying. I thought, I'm so sorry, I'll pay for it. And he said, oh, stop blubbering. Why don't you just declare it as a major? And I said, well, I wanted to come to university and study literature and history and political science and biology. I wanted to study everything. I didn't want to get too focused. And he said, bravo. He said, if you don't say anything, I won't either. Get out of here. And that was it. We made a deal, and it was fine. So I studied theater.
He saw your talent.
Well, he agreed with the principle that I was trying to take everything in. Yeah.
Live your passion, live your purpose, and you have been.
Yeah.
That's what life's about. Yes. So, how did you get into consulting with the speaking thing? Like you picked up on my accent or my languaging. How did you get into that?
Well, that's a hobby. I just like to listen to and see if I can pick up where somebody's from. Sometimes I can get it right to the town.
Yeah, well, you did.
Well, I just knew it was north.
Town,
that's all.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes I can nail it right down to like Hewlett, Nassau County. And people go,
what?
Oh my God, how did you know that?
Yeah. That's of course the East Coast.
Yeah. but that's, yeah, listening to the musicality of language and how different regions use it. I just think that's fun, and it's part of what you do as a theater director and as an actor. But really what I wanted to do is be a director from the beginning, and I didn't know how to study directing. And when I went to see John Houseman, he said, "Don't go to graduate school." He said, "Go to New York.
Yeah.
Go to New York and be somebody's assistant, make them coffee, make them tea, take notes, do whatever you have to do." So I went to New York, and I was an assistant director on Broadway. Got to work with Harvey Jones and Tom Schmidt, who wrote The Fantastics. And Diana Rigg was doing Colette, the musical, based on the French poet. And I worked as an assistant for several directors, and did that for a while, and came back to California, and I worked as an actor and as a director, and worked in a lot of the theaters. And then at one point, I started a theater company / theater school, and began teaching and doing a lot of work with young actors. I became passionate about how theater can be transformational in developing self-esteem in young people.
Sure.
So created a curriculum that integrated, now that I think of it, so this is really what I was doing in college. I'm just realizing this now. This is what I did in college. I was integrating all the stuff. So I went back and I integrated theater with literature, with math, and with science. And I came up with a whole series of lesson plans that were integrated with California standards for teaching these subjects in the classroom while also using theater, which is kinesthetic, which uses the body.
Okay, this is what I want to hear.
Yeah, so
definitely.
How do you help kids learn vocabulary and develop storytelling skills? And how do you take literature and put it on its feet? How can you begin to take some theater exercises and take some multiplication tables and get them on their feet playing with it?
Yes.
And there's tons of exercises around this. Kids learn by doing.
Yes, yes.
I mean, everybody's going, these
In
kids have an
music.
attention issue. They don't have an attention issue. They're bored. They're in a box, in a desk. They've got to get up and move. You got to teach them in their body. It became really clear to me. So I began to play with it and experiment with it, and we got a big grant. And
sorry, did you use music as well?
we used music, we used
all
masks,
of
we
it.
used everything we could find in the room to make it three-dimensional and fun and playful.
Yeah.
It's not the only thing. Kids still have to read and write and all that, but how do we make learning active?
Yeah.
But the core of this, the core thesis was that you could develop language arts, reading, writing, and speaking through theater. And those are the core skills that really determine a person's long-time success. Yes, you need math. I'm not putting that down. No, you need math, you need science. But to get along, the ability to communicate well.
That's a key in everything between humans.
Thank you.
And animals.
Yeah.
You know, that is the key.
That's the key.
And don't you think it's an art, though? It's learning how to communicate.
It's learning how to communicate. It's learning how to use language. It's how do I take the ideas in my head and synthesize them with the person who's next to me? We call that collaboration,
right.
Or dialogue. How do I learn to listen to what's actually being said and then what's underneath, or what we call the subtext?
Yeah.
How do I watch not only the body language but the face and begin to create empathy for another human being? And all of this is inherent in the training of an actor. Now, I wasn't trying to produce more actors. I was trying to help kids develop these essential skills through theater.
From their own internal being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we took a space at the Marin Ballet. They were very generous. We created a collaboration with Dominican University, and lo and behold, after a couple of months, we were serving thousands of kids a week. And then I wrote curriculum that went out to the schools, and did that for 7 years, very successful. And then Lucas was born, my third son. And I said to my wife, I never thought about money. I never ever thought about it. I made enough to live, and I didn't save. We just kind of lived. But there's something about when a child is born, you go, well, what if he wants horseback riding lessons, or he wants to go to camp? I thought I gotta figure out how to take this to another level. And I thought, who could I bring this to? And I thought, well, people in organizations probably need to learn to communicate well too.
Oh, geez, they need it the most.
Yeah.
In the
So all I did was I printed a card and I told a few people, and lo and behold, I started being asked to come. Would you come to our law firm and work with the junior attorneys? Or would you come to our accounting firm? And I took a lot of the same principles that I was using with the kids, and I would just reframe it, because the basics didn't change.
Right.
The context changed.
Right.
And then I read everything I could. I got my hands on every business book, every consulting book, every book on organizational development, and I began to study linguistics, and I became a student all over again. I went, wow, there's so much to learn here.
Aren't we students for the rest of our lives?
Yes, we are.
You know.
Well, if we choose to be.
Yeah, choose, of course.
I mean, I could have just stayed on the same thing and kept doing the same thing,
right.
but suddenly this new world opened up to me.
Evolved. Yeah.
And it occurred to me that if you could work with leaders have such an impact on the people that they serve, both internally and externally. And then, I was teaching at Esalen, and a gentleman by the name of Dr. George Kohlreiser, a professor, he saw me teaching, and he said, I'm doing a program in Switzerland for leaders. Could you take this and bring it over there? And I said, absolutely. So he invited me to IMD, which is, it's not really known here, but that's the #1 business school in Europe. Mm-hmm. I began to teach over there, and lo and behold, it just took off. And that program became very, very successful. And a lot of people said, will you come to my organization? To EY, to IBM. Will you come to Cisco Systems? Will you come to Washington, D.C.? Will you come to Warsaw? Will you come to Moscow? Will you come to London and Paris? And I was running all over the place and teaching this and coaching teams and going, I can't believe this is being, it was like wet paint to a dry barn. They just couldn't get enough. And I was getting tired. Yeah. And they said, and I was sort of falling into the illusion that it had something to do with me. And it occurred to me that this might not be me. There might be a methodology here. So a fellow theater director said, I'd like to do what you're doing. And I said, well, why don't I teach you what I'm doing, and let's see if you can get the same results. In other words, let me write the recipe down, see if you can make the cake rise. Right. And lo and behold, he went out and did it, and the cake rose just as much, and he brought his own style to it. But we followed this is a very specific methodology, honed after 14 years of teaching. And then I taught another guy. And then another woman, and then another guy, and another woman. And now we've got a team of 30 people who are teaching this all over the world, and we've created the Stand Deliver Consulting Group.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So it's because you can't have it all on your shoulders.
Well, you can, but you can't go very far. You can just go as far as you can travel on a plane.
That's right.
So it's been a great honor to be able to share this, and to also to bring in a lot of my colleagues from the theater who have that analytical skill and talent.
Yes.
You have to be able to, a lot of learning happens by modeling. You got to be able to model it, and then to be able to read the room and to see what's really going on with them.
Listening.
Yeah.
Listening is so important. And I picked that up about you initially, I thought, wow, he's an articulate listener, which you don't find too often. So that is your gift, one of your gifts.
Well, it's something I'm working on. and you work on it your whole life.
Yes, and it's subjective as well.
Yeah.
I know that for myself. Sometimes you don't want to hear things from somebody else, but hey, it's part of life.
Well, here's what I discovered, and it was part of one of the key ideas in the book is that we become seduced by our own ideas. We become enmeshed in them, and we get so caught up in them that we stop noticing what's going on around us.
That's
And
true.
the people that have the most difficulty with this are smart people, because their ideas are so elegant, but you need to also stay present to what's happening with the other person, whether you're speaking to one
Yeah,
or
whole-
100.
Right.
You're always in this dialogue of give and take.
Right.
How is it being received?
Yes, and that's where you read the other people that are receiving it, if they are receiving it.
You read and you demonstrate. If you have a genuine curiosity about the other, you don't have to tell yourself to read. You don't have to tell yourself to listen. You're genuinely curious about their condition. How is this being received? How are they doing? What's going on for them? I want to know more. And it's something that's too often lacking.
Yes.
Is our interest to listen, to be curious, not just to listen, but I want to know more. I want to feel more of what's going on with the other.
Right, right. And that's part of the artistry.
Yeah.
I think it's a learned art.
Yes, it is.
It's not a natural. We're not taught from this young, or whatever. It's an art.
Yeah. Children are great observers, but they're not great listeners.
No. And it takes. I remember learning with my daughter. I remember one of the teachers saying, it takes 200 times to say the same thing for them to get it, because their body, their mental, and their emotional aren't all in sync until like 25 and after.
Yeah. Well, it's questionable whether it happens after either. But the other thing is, for them, the world revolves around them.
Yes.
And for many of us, as we go into adulthood, we don't realize that, the world doesn't revolve around.
No, it doesn't.
It sure feels like it's my thing. Isn't it all about me?
Yes, and some of us learn the hard way. Anyway, would you like to share some key things about your book as we speak?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Are you ready for that, or am I asking too soon? Or have you finished what you want to say about the listening and learning?
Well, that's a key element in the book.
Yeah.
If I were to boil the book down, what are the key principles in there? What I did is I looked at communication, and I discovered that there were 3 essential elements to successful engagement. And I would call successful engagement where the other person is moved through the interaction. If all you're doing is moving information, the computer or the mobile phone will do that much better now. If all you have is data, send me the PDF.
Yeah, right. But you're saying the engagement of really the heart and the mind, the mindful
heart,
mind,
the mind, the spirit.
Yeah.
That in the end, if the coming together of 2 individuals, whether it's personal or professional, if one is moved, if the molecules have shifted, and I've learned or changed or shifted in a positive way because of my engagement with you, which might take a second or it might take an hour.
Yeah.
If that has happened, if I have moved you in a way that's consistent with my intention, then it's a successful engagement. Now, sometimes we move people in ways we didn't intend, but it's still positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
If all there are people you spend 10 seconds with them, and you don't know what it is, but you feel like $1 million afterwards. You go, I just love that guy, man. You're like ready to take anything. There are other people, you spend 10 seconds with them, and you feel like you've had the cheese sucked out of you. I need an espresso. What did that guy do to me? What they take.
Yeah.
And so one of the key principles in the book is that that we're being intentional. To be intentional about how do I want to move my listener in either a personal or professional setting. The book is geared more toward organizational communication, but all the same principles apply. Whether I'm speaking to my kids, they're bigger than I am, but or whether I'm speaking to a team, or whether I'm speaking to my partner, what's my intention? What is the gift that I want to impart from what I've thought about or what I've felt? How does this move from who I am to the other person in a way that improves their condition? And when you're connected to that, a wonderful generosity of spirit comes into play. One of the things I'm asked about is, the challenge of facing a crowd, which can be 10 or 1,000. Well, that challenge is much easier to overcome when you know you're bringing in something that's a gift.
Yes.
If you're in there to take, the alarm system goes off, and that's where a lot of the fear comes from.
Right.
But when you have a real purpose, there's a heroic quality that we all tap into. We find these resources of energy. The trembling doesn't go away. The butterflies are always there. You don't want them to go away.
That keeps you on the edge that you need.
Yeah.
To catapult.
Exactly. You want to be catapulted by some of that. It can get to be too much and strangle you.
Yeah.
But it's like, the metaphor I say is, when the butterflies are there, it's because they've come out of their cocoon. They're like the ideas, and they're ready to fly. Your job is to breathe into them.
Yes,
and let
breathe,
them go.
breathe. That is the key thing, is breathing.
Yeah. To breathe in, to let them go, and to be generous. So this triad that I talk about has to do with the three elements of communication, which is content, which is the ideas themselves and how you've organized it. Delivery, which is how you're using your body, your voice, and your eyes. And the third element, which is perhaps the most important but most often overlooked, which is your state. The psychological and emotional condition that you're in.
Okay.
The psychological emotional condition that you're in when you're communicating is what gets transmitted more than anything else. Because you can have great ideas, you can have a beautiful voice, but if you're angry, if you're stressed, if you're frightened, that's what gets communicated.
Sure. Absolutely.
And it not only gets communicated out, but more importantly, it gets communicated up to the brain. In a state of fear or anger or frustration, your ability to function, your brain function is compromised.
Right, it's
you
sabotaging.
cannot think. Yeah, exactly. It's self-sabotage. You've taken hostage by the emotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the ability, and this is where I've drawn upon my experience in sports and in theater. And, when I was a tennis instructor, as a ski instructor, we put such an emphasis on how do you get into the right mindset before the gate opens up, before you step on the court. In the theater, we talk about emotional preparation. How do I get emotionally prepared for the character, for the scene before I come in? But when we go into tough conversations or a tough speech, we often overlook this step. And we do so at our own peril. We have to learn a methodology, a ritual, if you will, for how do I get into the state that's consistent with the outcome I'm trying to produce. So we've built this on these three elements of what I call high performance communication: content, delivery, and state. That's the sort of structure in which the book is based.
Sounds good. Now if we could get this all, it's a key. It's a key for everyone. And oh my gosh, I think of the political things that are going on today, the promotions that are happening and everything is like, boy, do they need your training. Anyway, we won't get on that subject because that's not fair. But so Are you still consulting like corporate level?
Corporate, political,
Oh, okay.
Hollywood producers,
Yeah.
organizations, nonprofits. We still love working with schools, do a lot of work with
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
You know, teachers have some of the toughest jobs in the world. 25 weeks, 5 days a week, they got to get in front of the toughest audience in the world.
Yeah.
And storytelling and performance is not a required subject, which always struck me as odd. Why are we not teaching teachers how to hold the room,
Yeah.
how to use their voice,
Yeah.
how to capture a tough audience?
Do you know Jean Houston?
I don't know her.
I forget the name of her father, but her father was a storyteller, and I listened to her. She's a wonderful storyteller. She's a spiritualist. She has an organization here that she started, but I think she lives up in Oregon, up in Ashland.
Mm-hmm.
But I love listening to her because of her voice as well. But
Yeah.
she's a wonder, and so I listen to her, and I want to develop that more so for myself.
Yeah.
You know. But anyway,
Well, voice matters. The sound, the rhythm, the cadence, and the way in which you play the music of the idea is just as important as the idea itself. And here's the myth: you have to have a good voice. We all have good voices. I met one person in my life, and I've worked with hundreds of thousands of people. I met one person who had a vocal problem. No matter what sound this person made, it was unpleasant.
Yeah.
The rest of us have great voices, but we have to learn to play it.
Yeah.
Just like learning the clarinet.
instrument.
You know, there's so many beautiful notes in there, and so many different ways. You know, one of the exercises I often give people, I say, look, if you're reading to your kids, read and practice your vocal variety.
Yes, be dramatic. Bring that fluctuation in the drama out. That's yeah.
You know, there are three what I call sliders in the voices. Or what we you know, the opposite of interesting is the same. You know, what we call monotone. The
Yes.
opposite of monotone is variety. So there are three ways to create variety with the voice. The first is through volume. Using the volume in interesting ways to create emphasis or to drop down, to build to a crescendo. But so long as it stays unpredictable. The second is to play with the pitch, to use some of the upper notes, the yellows and the pinks in the voice, as well as the burgundies and the chocolates, and some of those warmer tones. And the third
It's
is
a wonderful way to say it.
Yeah.
You know.
And the third is with tempo. Play with the tempo a little bit. You know, if you're reading Harry Potter, you can, and suddenly Harry turned around and he didn't know what was happening, but he had a feeling. And he turned around, and there she was, Hermione.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
brings the richness of the story to life.
Of course.
And that's what we do with the voice. We paint the picture.
It's the artistry on a canvas, actually,
Yeah.
but in the voice.
Yeah. So I tell people,
love that.
read out loud and practice. It's a great way to practice your you have this wonderful instrument.
Yeah.
You don't have to take any lessons. You just got to stretch it a little
Yeah,
bit.
and practice.
Yeah.
Practice. Yes. This is wonderful information. I am so happy you're sharing this because this will go out to millions because I am really promoting my YouTube. And you can have the YouTube.
Good. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, in your wonderful knowledge and wisdom, what are some things that you could share, like some nuggets or whatever you want to call it, that, with our viewers, that, key things that, you've shared already so much, but something that maybe spontaneously you could think about that would help them be more of their authentic self?
Well, let's see. Here's another key principle, which is one of the challenges that we face is that the attention span of the listener is rapidly shrinking by the day. Anybody who has kids knows this, and anybody who has a boss knows this. It's very hard to hold the other person's attention. And so one of the questions we have to ask, what's fascinating is that nobody uses voicemail anymore, for example. People don't even leave messages. We don't want to talk on the phone, just send me a text.
I'm getting really concerned about this, seriously, with the millenniums.
Yeah, well, we have to ask a question. Is the spoken word dead or dying, or is it challenging us to redefine how we communicate? And I prefer the latter. I prefer to think that with the development of computer technology, we are now moving massive amounts of information at lightning speed, and it's not going away. We can't turn the clocks back.
No, it's here, and Wi-Fi is going to be, everything's going on Wi-Fi.
You and I are from a generation when we didn't have any of that, and we can lament the days when, when you wanted to, you had to get on your bike and go down the block. You couldn't text, but we're not going back to that. So kids are going to go, what's up?
Yeah,
Nothing.
Except when they're walking across the street doing this when there's a red light.
Yeah.
I honk at them and wake them up. It's like they jump, But it's like, come on, be conscious. I'm really concerned about it. I see it every day. I see them, and they're not engaging with their words. There's a serious issue.
Well, we have to ask, can they be engaged? And if the answer is yes, which I believe they can, everybody can be engaged. They're engaged. They're just not interested in the way we used to communicate. And maybe for good reason. Maybe for good reason. Because most of the information that I see is information. And if all you want is information, you can get it from a computer. If we're going to ask the people in an organization or the kids in a school or members of a family to put everything down and come into the room and listen to us speak, we're going to have to ask a bigger question about how to be relevant. And that's the challenge. How do you create relevance, which is another way of saying, how do you make this interesting? How do you make it compelling? How do you make them want to put this thing down and go, I want to listen to this? I'll give you an example.
Do you think? Sorry,
no, please.
Will you lose your thought?
No, I won't.
No. Do you think that it's because they have been? It's an entourage of so much information that they have gotten, that they process it faster. I know that, and so something really has to take their attention.
Absolutely. They're getting 10,000 bids for their attention in a given day. So if you want to talk to, you're a tour guide on one of those double-decker buses in San Francisco, you say, guys, I want your attention now. You're going to have to figure out how to get them to put those phones down. And it's not going to happen in the way that people spoke to us when we were kids. You're going to have to be much more relevant. And here's an example. So when a teacher teaches a lesson, not all teachers, but when somebody who has an expertise wants to teach a lesson, what they usually do is say, all right, so today we're going to learn about. We take it for granted that they want to learn about that.
And sometimes they don't.
They generally don't. In organizations, we bring them together and say, today what I want to talk to you about. Well, that's what you want to talk about. What about what I need? I sit down with my team. I make the same mistake, by the way. Today, what I want to talk to you about, what I need to get off my chest, what I need to say. Well, listen to what I'm saying. This is all about my needs. I say to people all the time, I say, what's the speech about? And he goes, well, Peter, what I want this to be about, what I want to say, what I want to express, I say, look, save it for your mother. She's the only one who cares about what you want to talk about. She'll listen to you all day. Your mom and your therapist, just all what you want to talk about. We have to ask a different question. And it starts with this. Number one, what is my outcome for them? By the end of this, they will have much more confidence in terms of their ability, or they will have some clarity, or they will understand, or they will be excited about. And what I've done is I've shifted it off myself and gone, by the end of this, my son will see a clear path too. The second question, why should he care? And this is the question that almost everybody overlooks. Why should he care about this? Why should any kid want to learn about the Civil War? Why? And if you can't answer that question, you're probably not going to be able to get their attention. Yeah. And we call that the ramp. How do you elevate the conversation to the highest possible level? When I started fundraising for the theater school years ago, I used to go in and say, we're doing amazing work and I need your help to get it done. And I would get no. Because I was in there because I need your help. I want. And of course, I knew I was doing something that I thought was noble. Why don't you get it? And this is where it suddenly occurred to me. That board, that group of people is there because they're trying to get their needs met. And I began to shift the conversation. My father taught me this a long time ago. He taught it to me. My father was big on writing letters. And he said, shift the I-U ratio in your letters. Instead of I, starting every sentence with I. And if you look at your emails, you'll see, we almost always do it, I. My dad used to call it I-itis. Yeah. And the same thing when speaking. So I began to say, look, you're all here because I think you're aware that here in Marin County, we're seeing more and more kids that are disenchanted with school. Yeah. Dropout rates are going up. Yeah. Crime among youth, more and more kids. Yeah. And many of you are asking yourselves, how can you have an impact? How can you create a change? Well, today, what I'm going to talk to you about is how theater can change children's lives. I elevate the conversation to something that they care about. Right. Instead of, I need you to clean up the room, it's, I want to talk to you about some of the ways in which you can start to get a little more freedom and independence and autonomy. How does that sound? Yeah, Dad, I'm definitely interested in that. Yeah. His brain just opened up. Yeah. I don't always get that perfect.
No, but you're on the right track.
But if we want somebody to listen, we're going to have to start going, let me stand in their shoes and ask, what are the psychological, emotional, spiritual, and business needs of the other? And speak to those needs. Because when you're meeting somebody's needs, they will walk through fire for you. Yeah, that's very true. If you're just talking about what you want,
it's a turn off.
Yeah. I mean, if I really, really love you, I might listen. But even then, your mom still wants to know, she wants to hear about her too. So changing not just the IU, but putting yourself in the position of how do I meet the other person's needs? And that becomes what we call the frame of the ramp. So you're setting out from the start by going, my outcome is focused on improving your condition. Yes. And if you think about it, we have about 100 conversations every week. We probably have 1,000 meetings a year. And if in each and every one of those, we left people a little bit more uplifted. If we create clarity where there's confusion, if we create certainty where there's doubt, if we can create a little bit more laughter where there's, depression, you leave a little bit of a gift, a little light with every single human being. That's a life worth living. You can put your head down at the end of the night and go, I made a difference today in some small way.
Yes. Amen.
And you don't need to be leader of an organization. You don't need to have any special equipment. You don't need a camera. All of those help, but it's one person at a time.
Absolutely. And that's what I do every day.
Yeah. We aspire to this, yes?
Yes. And it feels good, but I don't think about it. Yeah. I just do it.
Well,
I just do it.
It's part of who you are.
Pardon me?
It's part of your character.
Yeah. I don't want to get hung up on the ego part, I just keep doing it.
Yeah. I have to remind myself.
Well,
you're here to serve.
We're human, and I do have to remind myself of that too, to be honest. spiritual beings in a human body.
Well said.
Anyway.
Now, how did you develop such a gift for conversation? Where did it develop in you? Are we allowed to ask the host questions
No, it's
too?
fine. You know, it's funny. I reflect back on my report cards in elementary school, and I would always get in trouble for talking too much.
Right.
No matter what. I remember having to go stand in the corner because I was talking too much.
Yeah.
And then I shut down
Mm-hmm.
for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I shut down for a while because I'm dyslexic,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I'm ADD.
Mm-hmm.
So I shut down when I got a little older, when things started coming at me that were, challenging. I shut down. But then I reemerged again because my self-esteem. But I don't know. I just think it's important to communicate. Communication's the key. So I guess I had it in me way back when. And I was also born an RH baby.
A what?
RH baby.
What is that?
And I think because I had to fight for my life. It's when your mother is negative and your father's positive.
Mm-hmm.
And now it doesn't happen because they have an antidote for it. But it's when the third child is born, as soon as they cut the umbilical cord, I was dying because my blood was going bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they had to take me and transfuse my blood. So I know that's affected me for life.
Yeah.
I've only met one other person that went through this. So, I guess there's a part of me that's grateful to be alive. And like I said, my dad sometimes would say to me, "You think so positive." And then he'd say, "Don't rock the boat." Because I'd speak my words, but I've learned when not to say things and how you say it, and it takes practice on how to say things eloquently.
It's a lifelong study.
Yes,
right?
it is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Well, we have about 3 minutes left. What can you give us? You've been given so much, and thank you, Peter, for sharing all this. This is such golden information.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to get it out there to share it, because you've given so much information and teaching, and everybody can use it.
Yeah. Well, I'll say a few words about state, and also, can I tell people how to reach me if they want to?
Sure. Well, I'll put it on.
Yeah.
And when we do the final editing, I'll put it on there.
Okay, great.
Definitely.
But
I've got that information.
Yeah. So we're the Stand and Deliver group, and we do about 4 times a year. We'll do a program where people can come, individuals can come and do them. We're doing more and more of those. But the third part is, so how do you address your state? Not just to overcome nerves, but how do you bring yourself to an optimum psychological and emotional state? And there are really 3 pathways, and I've looked at this my whole life. But the first is to understand how your body affects your mental state. When we hunch over, when our physical position is clenched down, it's very hard to be in a resourceful
how can you be
state.
Open?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a pattern that the body goes into when it's generous, when it's open, when it feels courageous. There's also a breathing pattern for almost every emotion. So getting into the breathing pattern that you connect with when you're really alive, when you're excited, when you're purposeful. The second way is through what we call the mind's eye. What you focus on becomes your reality. The problem is we're often hardwired to focus on the negative. We're hardwired to look at the dangers around us. That's how we've stayed alive for the last few 100,000 years. We look for the danger. A high performer has to look for the possibility. You have to rewire the brain. Like an athlete, A skier going through the gate on a downhill race isn't asking, what if I fall? She's asking, how do I shave 2/100ths of a second off my time? The third is through your beliefs, the core beliefs you have about what you're doing in a high-stakes situation. A belief is a feeling of certainty about what something means. How are you interpreting the things around you? What set of glasses are you using to interpret the event? The event itself is meaningless, but we create stories about it. I see somebody look at their watch when I'm speaking, I can go, well, that means he's bored. I don't know, maybe he's just concerned because he has to make his next meeting and he doesn't want to miss the last part of what I have to say.
That's right.
What story is going to bring me forward? I can look at my past and go, well, I had such a difficult past and that's why I am the way I am. I can go, it made me who I am today.
Absolutely.
The overcoming those obstacles made me stronger. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but we have to pay attention to our attention. What are the stories that we've created around the obstacles? And if you're attentive to your state, if you get clear about how you're bringing a gift to each individual and stay conscious about how you're delivering it, your communication is always improving. It's always improving in service of the other.
Amen. That's wonderfully said. And with that, we're done already.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
It's been a real pleasure.
Yes, it has, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This has really been a golden time.
I've really enjoyed it.
Good, I'm glad.
Yes.
See, that's what it's all about. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was great. I'll leave you with this. Never give up, even if things look impossible. Be grateful, and be grateful for your freedom of choice, freedom to learn, to earn, and discern. Eat healthy. Good nutrition feeds the mind and your body temple. Feed your spirituality with meditation and prayer. Love yourself unconditionally. Stop criticizing, stop judging, forgive yourself and others. Stop allowing others to dominate the way you feel and think about yourself. Be compassionate with yourself first. Share your abundance and wealth with others in whatever form that may be. When fear knocks, let faith answer the door. Remember the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. Wealth is the ability to fully experience life by Henry David Thoreau. Thank you, Marin TV, for facilitating our show, and especially to my crew, Brad, Eric, Lal, and Lori. Thank you, thank you. If you like our show, please let us know at #MarinTV or on our Facebook page. Please support and become a member of Marin TV. Bye for now. Until next time.